All right, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lothar Wegner, and thank you very much for taking a few minutes with me this morning or this afternoon, wherever you may be. We're going to talk about how you can basically teleport to your office and do the things that you need to do while you're not at the office. I'm sure this has happened to all of you at one point or another. You're on vacation, or maybe you're in a hotel room somewhere, or maybe you've already just made it home for the day, and either you get a call from someone saying, hey, can you help me out, or you've had a sudden panic attack and realize that you forgot to do something while you were at the office. This, of course, is not convenient for you. You might face a costly trip back to the office, or a lengthy trip back to the office, or maybe there isn't a way for you to conveniently get back to the office in time to do whatever it is that that you needed to do, or that someone has asked you to do to help them out and do them a favor. Everyone, I'm sure, has imagined or has wished that something like a Star Trek transporter did exist, so that you could instantaneously travel back to the office, get that work done, and then get back to whatever it is that you were doing. And even if it wasn't just for the purposes of work, just getting to your vacation spot, whatever the case may be, unfortunately these transporters or teleporters do not exist, and we have to make do with our conventional means of transportation. To avoid some of those challenges around transporting yourself to the office, again, costly, lengthy delays, or simply no option available to get to the office, some people have thought about taking their work with them. And here is an example of a European industrial designer who's dreamed up this portable office that you can take with you. And you can see it gives you the basics. You do have something like a desk and a chair to sit on, and there's even a room for your files and binders and things like that in there. But that does come with some challenges. It doesn't come with the things that are the most critical to you that are sitting at the office. Specifically, all that data, all the files that's sitting inside of your data center, and then all the printers that you have access to in your office. Those printers that have the specific form types or letterheads or something like that. That's not easy to bring with you. So at Novell, we have some solutions for you that basically give you access to all of those critical things in the palm of your hand, using a smart device, a smartphone, or a tablet of some sort. Let's start off with just the files. How can you get access to all of those files that are sitting inside of your data center on that smart device when you're not at the office? So Novell, we have a solution called Novell Filr. And what Filr does is it interfaces with all of the existing storage that you may have, whether it is our own open enterprise server, or a Windows server, or even a NAS device that you may have files on sitting at your office. It brings together a variety of different client access devices, obviously the mobile devices, but we also have support for laptops, and then WebDAV and browser access. So no matter where you are, if you do have that smart device with you, if you do have access to a computer that has access to the internet with a browser, you can get to those files sitting in the office. And the way that we do that is, again, with Novell Filr, it is what we call a virtual appliance that you can simply drop inside of your data center, and it enables mobile/remote access to all of those back-end resources that you have. It runs on VMware, Hyper-V, as well as then XEN hypervisors. We'll connect to whatever directory service that you have inside of your environment, either Novell/NetIQ's eDirectory or Microsoft's Active Directory. And as the users authenticate with their traditional credentials, their username and password, we will also check the access controls that you have built up over the years and make sure that only the users that have access to the files do in fact get access from these mobile devices. So not only do you not have to change and redo the way that you store all of your files, but you also don't have to redo any of your access controls. Filr does have a couple of additional capabilities. The first one is email notifications. So if you're not sitting at the office and if it is not very convenient for you to, check the file to make sure that somebody has done their part and updated it with whatever information is missing, you can get an email notification advising you that the file's been changed and updated, and only then do you have to, go and log in and get that file. Filr also supports things like sharing content with not only internal users but external users as well. So we do respect all of the existing access controls that exist around your data, but if, as an IT administrator, you allow people to share those files, we give you that capability, and you can share internally as well as externally, again, if that's allowed. So this gives you an easy way to basically grant people access to those files, and even remotely, so that you don't have to email it as an attachment, clogging up your email system, their email system, and basically losing track of the versions. All of those documents are stored securely on your server. Filr does have, as I mentioned, mobile device support. Specifically, we support iOS, Android, BlackBerry 10, as well as Windows Phone devices. We have apps for all of those. And then we also have, the laptop and desktop, which is Windows and Mac, as well as browser support. Here you see the iOS, specifically an iPad application, and what you have up here are My Files, which is your home directory on the network. This is your F drive or your H drive, or whatever the drive letter convention that you may have inside of your environment. The net folders are all of the network shares or the map drives that you have access to. So from this simple interface, you have access to all of the data that you would have while you were sitting in the office. I talked about the sharing, and shared with me are files that you don't actually have access to directly yourself on the file system, but things that people have shared with you, and this is where Filr will proxy those rights. We do have things like an activity stream as well, which show you all the new files, files that you've shared with other people, so that's the shared by me. And then you have the ability to download files to your device in case you're disconnected or out of range of a Wi-Fi hotspot or whatever the case may be. And then another feature that Filr provides you is the searching or the full text searching capability. So if you enable this, Filr can full text search enable all of the files sitting on your file servers. By the way, if anybody has any questions, please use the chat dialogue, the question dialogue, to ask any questions, and I'll be happy to pause and answer those. This is the web interface that I mentioned before that we have for Filr. You'll see that it has the same capabilities in terms of My Files, shared with me, shared by me, and net folders. So this, again, if you're sitting in an internet cafe or something like that, gives you access to all of those files without needing to do complicated VPNs or anything else. You have access to everything, from that browser interface. And then for the laptop, the mobile laptop user, and this is for Windows as well as for Macintosh OS X. We have an agent that sits on your system and synchronizes important information. So we do integrate with your favorites as well as your library. You get a Novell Filr entry, and it's basically a shortcut to the file system where you have a My Files, net folders, and shared with me structure. And whatever files and directories you've opted to synchronize, they will show up underneath that directory structure, the same way they would as if you were using the mobile app or the browser. The next part of that equation was the printing, and let's talk about how you can get access to all of those fancy printers back at the office with that important cover letters, form types, etc. So just like Novell Filer, Novell iPrint takes all of your existing printers, even if they've existed for 10 years or more before any of these smart devices existed, and lets you print to them basically from those mobile devices as well as traditional workstations, so Windows, Mac, as well as Linux workstations, desktop workstations, as well as laptops. And again, just like Novell Filer, iPrint is actually an appliance. Those of you who are NetWare or OES customers, you're probably familiar with Novell iPrint. It was a component of those two operating systems. It's been around for close to 20 years, but what we've done is we've broken it out and we've created a virtual appliance. That virtual appliance, again, runs in VMware, Hyper-V, as well as Xen Hypervisor. And just like Filer, it integrates with any directory, authentication directory that you have inside of your environment. This allows you to provision printers to not only your internal users, but also secure those printers so that if there is a printer in, say, the CEO's office or something like that, you don't get the janitor, in the basement printing off their cleaning supply order to that particular printer. You have the ability to provision printers to just authorized users and not anyone else. The authentication also comes in handy when you're doing auditing or accounting and doing chargebacks, so that you can actually track who the individual was that printed those pages and then do chargeback to the individual, to the department, whatever the case may be. In addition to those traditional means of printing from workstations, as well as the newer mobile devices, iPrint also supports email printing. So this allows you to simply send an email to either iPrint itself, or you can set up individual email addresses for your printers, so that all someone has to do is attach the document to an email, send it in, iPrint will grab it, render it, and then print it out. Again, just like Filer, Novell iPrint supports iOS, Android, BlackBerry 10, as well as Windows Phone devices. And here you see a screenshot. This happens to be on an iPad, of course, and Adobe Acrobat, showing you the different ways that iPrint has the ability to print. In a little bit more detail, we talked about the email, so simply emailing that document, in this case a PDF, as an attachment, it will be delivered to iPrint and printed out on the printer. Open in, we do have an iPrint app that I mentioned, iOS, Android, BlackBerry 10, as well as Windows Phone. When you select that option, this application, in this case Adobe Acrobat, will pass the document onto the Novell iPrint application, which then connects to the printer and prints out that document. And the last option is iOS only, and this is for iOS devices that support AirPrint. So AirPrint does come with some limitations, but when you're doing, if you are in the right environment, you have this enabled inside of your environment, when you select print document, you will see a list of AirPrint printers and have the ability to print that document directly to the printer that way. Again, that is for iOS only. One of the other things that iPrint does to help you navigate and print to the printers that you may have inside of your environment is this ability to attach a barcode, a QR code, more specifically to the printer. The user can simply walk up to that barcode, scan it from the mobile app, and they're automatically configured to print to that particular printer. This, of course, does not work if you're sitting on the beach somewhere on vacation, because you're nowhere near that printer. But for people within the office, as they're walking around the office and they find a printer that they want to print to, all they have to do is scan that code and they have the ability to print. This is the desktop interface, or an example of the desktop interface for Novell iPrint. And this is actually Novell's floor plan for the Provo office. What you can do is take images of your floor plans, drag and drop the printers that you have available to you on that floor plan, and then publish that and make it available to your users. And if I'm traveling to Provo and I happen to be on the 8th floor, sitting in, say, maybe this conference room, I can see that that's my closest printer. All I have to do is click on that printer. My workstation is automatically configured to print to that printer, and all the drivers are installed correctly and configured for, the number of trays that that printer has, the options such as color, stapling, and so on. And then I have the ability to just print. I don't need to know anything else. I don't need to, write down the IP address, go and configure the printer port, add the appropriate drivers. All I do is click and print. All right, so let me take a break from the slides here for a minute, and we'll do a quick demo here. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the chat log, the question log. So iOS sees only print document. Other devices will need the open in. So yes, only iOS has the ability to just say print. And when you say print, it uses by default the Bonjour protocol to broadcast those available printers on the network. And when you have that available to you, you can just select that printer and print. You don't have all of the same security capabilities. You don't have all the same options in terms of the print options, but it's a very quick and simple way to print. Bonjour is very chatty on the network. It's not something that a lot of people enable. It also doesn't cross routers, so if you have multiple subnets or VLANs, there's some additional things that you need to do, but otherwise, yes, only iOS devices have that capability, and then if you're not on that, if your wireless network is not configured for that, or if you have some of the other device types, Android, Blackberries, etc., then you have to use the open in, or on Android it's called share with, and print that way. All right. So I'm going to wear multiple hats during this presentation. Right now, just show you basically what it would look like earlier in the day or the week or whatever the case may be when I was at the office. So I'm sitting at a computer. I have a map drive, my home directories, my H drive. I have a sales directory, courses. I have this thing called HQ Share, which is just to the root. But basically, this is where I would work if I was sitting at the office. I have a document here that I've been working on, an invoice. My company sells donuts, and I've got an order for some donuts here that I've been working on. And then let's just say I go home for the day, and I get that dreaded call, or I remember that I forgot to do something. So now, to change hats, now this is my remote workstation. So I'm on my laptop at home, or my home computer, or whatever, and just to show you the different ways that you can retrieve those files back at the office, from your remote location. So if I go to My Files, you'll see that there's that sales invoice. I have an agent down here. Open the Filr console. So this is sitting there on my computer, and it's synchronizing the change files to my computer. And I've told it, to synchronize my files shared with me, as well as the courses and the sales folders, so that I can work at home and get things done. So this is, again, one way that I could retrieve those files and access those files from my home computer. Here you see the browser interface. Again, using the simple browser, I have access to my files, net folders. So there's my courses, HQ, and sales. I have shared with me, so these are other files that other people have shared with me. I don't actually have rights to them on the file system. And then there's the My Files. And again, scrolling down, there's that sales invoice, which we'll come back to in just a minute. To show you a couple of other things while we're here, because it's a little easier to show on the browser, One of the things that I can do is view as HTML. So this is a document that Anne Reed has shared with me. So I can choose to, and I'll get past the SSL warning, but I can choose to view that as HTML. So again, I may be sitting in an internet cafe. I may not have the actual application, in this case Excel, but it may not be installed on the computer. But I can still collaborate and figure out what's going on, even though I don't have those applications installed. I also have the ability to, actually, I can't do that there, to see some comments. So Filr also supports commenting. So in this case, this is my comment back to Anne saying, thanks, I really like this ROI calculator that she's produced. But this gives you, again, a way of collaborating with your teammates without needing to attach the file and say, hey, check it out, and then somebody replies back, they make changes to the file. Other people just tell you what to change, and then you quickly lose track of the version. So here, the file is always in the same spot, and you have the ability to attach these notes to the file and collaborate with whoever has access to it. All right, and David has asked if there's a way to encrypt the files or folders on the home computer. So at this point in time, Filr does not do that. It simply drops the files in. We do have another product called ZenWorks Full Disk Encryption, which you could combine with Filr to encrypt that disk and ensure that, you know, somebody, if that computer were compromised somehow, somebody got access to it, they stole it or whatever the case may be, that disk is encrypted and those files would be inaccessible to people. And to go back to my files, just to show you the sharing capabilities. So I have the ability to share. I can add external people. Just add myself. I can choose whether or not, in this case, I'm a viewer or an editor. I can also decide when this access to this file expires. So either never on a specific date or after X amount of days. So I can say this, you know, we're working on a deal and this price or whatever the case may be is only good for 30 days and then it goes away. And I can also attach a note. And that's just the inside internal sharing versus external sharing. And with the internal sharing, obviously those people exist on the network already, so we have name completion for that, and then for the external sharing, the user gets an email and they can simply create a password for their account or use something like OpenID to authenticate and log in and get access to those files. So again, so far we've looked at using the desktop mobile app on my computer using a browser. And if this works, let's switch over to a smart device of some sort, in this case an iPad. And there we go. All right. So down here at the bottom, I have my Filr mobile app. And, you know, there's my files. Give that a second to refresh. There's my net folders. Again, it's a little bit slow because of the presentation, but and then, you know, I do have other things like shared with me. We'll get to the downloads in a second, and the searching capabilities. Let's take a look at that sales invoice. What it's going to do is give me a preview on the right-hand side here, and then I have a couple of options. I have the ability to make this full screen, so I can hide this navigation bar on the left-hand side. This little down arrow right there actually allows me to download the device. If I'm about to download the file to my device. If I'm about to board a plane or something where I know I won't have internet access or Wi-Fi connectivity or anything like that, I can simply click on that and then download it to my local device so that when I am disconnected, I can make some changes and edits to it. And then I have the open in, and I can also close the preview. So the viewer that we're using right here is just the device, local device viewer, in this case iOS, because I'm using an iOS-based device, or Android. If the file type that we're looking at is not supported by the local device, it is actually rendered on the server using that view HTML capability that I showed you a few minutes ago, and then sent to my device as HTML. So I still have the ability to view it, even though I may not have an app or have the ability to render it on the local device. And, you know, to kind of complete the scenario, you know, I'm sitting at home now and somebody's asked me, can I get a copy of that that invoice? Maybe accounting needs to send in the invoice out, or the receptionist needs to mail it, or whatever the case. My teammates need access to it. So what I can do here is say open in, and I'm going to pick my Polaris Office, which is a simple editor for my iOS device. I can see, you know, before I make that available, I can see, oh, I made a little typo there. Instead of an N at the end, I've got an N. Oops. Or and instead of an N at the end, I've got an M. So I'm just going to fix that, and we'll say save that. And now to complete the, you know, the little scenario that we've got, I have some options, and I'll give this a chance. Come on. Just to show you, so if I select print here, this is the AirPrint capability that I talked about. And when I select that, these are the printers that are being broadcasted on my network. So with iPrint, I can broadcast, I can AirPrint enable any printer, even, like I said, if it existed long before things like iOS and AirPrint existed. So I can enable that for any printer on my network. Just to go back. Come on. And then you can see here, there's not a lot of options. So I can select the number of copies and whether or not I want double-sided, but that's really it with AirPrint. If I go back to my menu, and the last option that you see here is Open In. So when I select that one, I get a list of other applications that are available. So on Android, as I mentioned, this is called Share With. And then on here, it's called Open In. So I can open this into iPrint, and what that does is take the current document, pass the contents of that document to iPrint, and then here I have a list of printers. These are my favorite printers, but I can also go in and see all the printers. So, you know, if the scenario calls for me to print that out to the accounting printer, now you can see that there's a lot more options that are available to me. I can choose whether or not I want to see double-sided, color, portrait or landscape, the number of copies, the page range, the paper size, and so on. And when I say print, you know, that goes off and prints out onto the particular printer. Let's go back to our app, and then the last thing, you know, maybe the call was, I need you to put that into the shared sales net folder so that my other teammates have access to this particular order. So from here, I can also just say Open In and choose Novell Filer, and basically pass this document, now that I've made the corrections and so on, back into Filer, and I can choose where I want to save it. and I'm going to select sales, and we'll say that, and upload. So what I've done now is I've saved a copy of that document back into Filr, into the sales net folder. So now my teammates, you know, who are still slaving away back at the office trying to fulfill this order have access to this particular order on the network share in the sales net folder. Any questions so far? All right. So again, the scenario was I've gone home for the day, or I'm traveling, I'm stuck in a hotel room. I got the call, somebody needed access to that document. I could make changes, do whatever I needed to do to that document. I could print it to the printer sitting beside the person in the office, or I could just save it up to the network where, you know, whoever could access that document. So I took it from my personal space on the network and saved it up to a shared directory. If the only objective was to just move that file from my personal My Files directory into the sales net folder, I actually didn't need to do anything fancy like open in or anything like that. The little exclamation mark beside the file, I should have shown you that. Let's back up for a second. I don't have the file listing, I apologize. But the little exclamation mark beside the file, there's a little exclamation mark and an arrow. I could have just done a move or a copy right from there. I didn't need to do the open in. Again, if that was the only objective, was to move it to the shared file on the shared folder on the network, I could have just done that easily enough. But I wanted to show you the ability to edit the file as well as print the file, you know, from your mobile device. And Lynn has asked, does it overwrite the file on the network? So it will prompt you if the file is already there and warn you that there's a file with the same file name. Do you want to overwrite the file, or do you want to rename the file? So it does give you that prompt when you do that. And then for versioning, that is something that you do have to do manually. At this point in time, Filr does not do versioning, so it only retains one copy of the file. If you want to version, you have to put a .1 or a V1 or something like that at the end. And then, just looking at the questions, does Filr provide compression? So at this point in time, Filr does not do anything other than just it's an HTTPS connection to the server and does not do any kind of compression. And when you open in Filr, does it default the files to the original location? So by default, when you select open into Filr, it does go back into the My Files. And then if you wanted to go into a subdirectory under My Files or into the net folders or something like that, you basically have to navigate and select that location yourself. Again, the default location is My Files, and then anything else, you just simply browse the directory and pick that directory. And I think that's it for now, so we'll continue on. All right, so we've shown you things like printing and accessing your files and so on, but there are other things that happen at the office that maybe you can't really get when you're sitting at home or in a remote location of some sort, and that is collaborating with your teammates. So within Novell GroupWise, for those of you who are GroupWise customers, we have we're about to release the Novell Messenger version 3, which does have mobile support as well, iOS and Android, so that you can communicate with your fellow teammates using that. And then you may have, you know, a mainframe or a host of some sort inside of your organization. Obviously, this is not something that you can ever bring with you. You know, there's no shortcuts or anything else that you can do. You know, that sits in your data center and you're stuck with that. However, our colleagues at Attachmate do have, you know, a solution for that that allows you mobile access to your host, you know, SSH access or terminal emulator access to your host, whatever the case may be. So hopefully I've shown you that you can use, you know, the Novell and our if relevant, our Attachmate colleagues' products to do your work no matter where you are. You know, sitting at home, sitting on a beach somewhere, stuck in some place, whatever the case may be, and not have to, you know, do complicated things like VPN in or anything else. So you don't need to go through all kinds of hoops, go through all kinds of pain. Just simply pull out your mobile device, your laptop, whatever the case may be, and get your work done, and then move on with whatever it is that you were doing. I've added this slide to just illustrate something. This is something about Novell's internal system, which at the time, dating, this is, you can see the date goes back to 2002, called iLogin. So this is our Novell intranet. And with Novell iLogin, we really kickstarted a lot of these concepts that you see today with this solution. It was a VPN-less access, single sign-on to all of the resources that we had back in the office. It did at the time use things like iPrint. Of course, the mobile devices didn't exist at the time, so we used the desktop version of iPrint, but our CIO at the time had this concept of work as an activity, not a place, and everything that we've built into this at the time has permeated through all of these solutions that we have today, allowing you to get your work done no matter where you are. I've got the, if anybody's interested, previous versions of this webinar, I've had questions, how do you get to that URL? So there's the full URL, but you can just go to bit.ly/iLogin, and that will take you directly to this article, and you can take a look at it if you wanted to reference it yourself. So if you're interested in Novell Filr and Novell iPrint or any of the other solutions from Novell, you can simply go to download.novell.com and then do a search for Filr or iPrint and download those files. We do have 60-day evals available for each of those. And if you're an OES customer on maintenance, you actually have access to Novell Filr as part of your maintenance. You also get Novell iPrint, the desktop portion of Novell iPrint, and have the ability to try out the mobile version and expand the mobile use with some additional licenses. For those of you who are not OES customers, we invite you to try this out anyways. Like I said, it works in a Novell environment, but it works equally well in a Microsoft environment. And that's, in fact, what I was using to demo this today. I was using a Windows server, a Windows environment to demo that. And if you have any additional questions, you can go to novell.com/mobility. We have a lot of information up there. You will also get an email in a couple of days thanking you for attendance to this webinar from Patrick Hines. You can also reply back to him if you have any questions or need more information. So with that, let me go back here. I don't see any more questions. I'll give you a couple more minutes to ask some questions. Otherwise, I want to thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Hopefully you found it useful, and hopefully there's something here that you'll take advantage of in the near future. And so I'm not seeing anything else. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon.